guys, so today I'm teaching you something very special. What I'm about to teach you is something that I do on a day-to-day basis. This is something that I will pull out and use with any deck of cards because I can truly do this anytime, anywhere, and I've gotten to the point where I've done this for years and I've gotten very good at it, to the point where I'm very confident in that it will work, and I know how to go about all of the fail-safes if it does not succeed for any reason. But anyways, here's a quick demo of what the trick looks like. All right, so here's a quick demo of what the trick would look like. So let's just say the spectator picks a random card out of this deck. It truly doesn't matter what the card is. Let's just go through and take a random one out here. Let's say this one, and we don't even need the rest of the deck anymore. But this card will be placed off to the side. And now with this other deck over here, we can completely shuffle this deck as much as the spectator wants. It truly does not matter. However, I'm just gonna spread the cards like this on the table, and I'm simply going to run my finger down the deck and have them say stop. Stop right here, you sure? Okay, look, I'm just gonna lower my finger down right here. So currently my finger is on the 8 of diamonds, is that fair? Yeah, look, you could have genuinely selected any card from this deck. You could have said stop at any point. However, the card from the other deck just so happens to be the perfect match, the 8 of diamonds. All right, so now that you've seen the trick, here is the tutorial for how it works. So that's right, what you're gonna be able to learn is you are going to be able to have the spectator say stop at the exact card that you want them to say stop at. And this is something that, like I said, I've done for many, many years, and I've gotten to the point where this will work for me about 90% of the time. This can be done with the deck face down. I typically do it with the deck face up because it makes the trick seem even more impossible now that they can actually see all of the cards that are different and the possibilities that they could stop on. So without further ado, let's get into how this works. So this is, at the end of the day, a card force. So you have a target card that you are trying to force the spectator to choose, but the act of them calling out stop makes it seem like it's a completely free choice. So all this is essentially a psychological timing force. Now what that means is you are basically timing your hand movements in correlation with the spectator's desire to say stop. So my first tip I would give for this force is to not do this to somebody right off the bat when you are first sitting down and showing them a card trick. This is never the first trick that I show somebody. This is only a trick that I would do in the middle or towards the end of my set when I've gotten to get a grasp on the spectator's behavior and how they are as a person, or if I'm performing this for someone that I know fairly well and that I know they won't purposefully mess me up. In other words, I'm gonna choose a spectator that I can trust, will follow my instructions, and someone who is, I guess, easy to influence. There's many other types of psychological forces. The most classic one is where you have a card in the 8th position, let's say the Queen of Spades. What you're gonna do is you're gonna deal 4 cards and say, okay, so go ahead, you can say stop at any time. And now you deal the cards slowly, and it's very likely that they will say stop either here or right here. And if they say stop here, you can show them this card. And if they say stop here, then you can just show them this card. The rule for this force is that the spectator will usually say stop around or after 3 cards. So you go 1, 2, 3, and they should say stop around this point or 4, and that would be okay too. So there's another psychological force that I've taught on the channel that revolves around the same principle, but it looks a bit different. So this force has you forcing the top card of your break, let's say the 8 of hearts in this case. I have a break on that card, and that card is in the center of the deck. I'm going to take little piles of cards and deal them on the table, and I'm going to tell the spectator to say stop. At this point, I'm now going to take 1, 2, 3 packets, and they should say stop around here, or if not, I can take 1 more packet, deal it down, and they should say stop around this point, meaning that I can now force the 8 of hearts. So that's the same rule of waiting around 3 or 4 for the spectator to say stop. The same exact thing applies with the pointing force over here. So let's spread the cards out and we'll choose a target card somewhere in the middle. Let's do the Queen of Diamonds. So let's say I need to force the Queen of Diamonds. And with this force, you truly have a free choice to start from either side of the deck. I typically start from the side where the card is farthest from. So this card is a little bit closer to the left edge, so I'm gonna start on the right instead. That gives me more time to go slowly, and it also gives me more time to explain what I want the spectator to do, and I'm going to tell them that I want them to stop. And when I say the word stop, I'm going to be about halfway between the start and their card. So right when I'm here, I'll start to slow down, and it should be about 3 or 4 seconds before the spectator says stop, and that will be right at their card. Like I said, this works about 90% of the time, and that's really all there is to say about it. Now, of course, there is the question, what if they don't say stop on that card? Now, the easiest one to fix is what if they say stop 1 or 2 around their card? Well, this is how I like to go about that. Let's say they say stop right here. It's more or less on the 5 of spades, but what I can do is I can say, are you sure right here? You could have said stop over here, and I'll distract their attention by pointing my fingers over to the edge of the deck. And as I'm pointing to this side of the deck, I can just very easily take my finger and move my index finger over like this, just pivot it, not actually physically moving my wrist, but just moving my finger as I'm misdirecting them over here. You could also say stop over here, but you said stop exactly down at this card, the Queen of Diamonds. And that is a way to very subtly misdirect them while gaining control over the situation just by moving your finger back and forth. Now, of course, this is the easiest way to course correct any mistake, but what happens if the spectator really doesn't go for it and they want to stop somewhere down here? Well, in this case, this is the same exact technique that I used in the other force video. If they say stop way earlier or way before, you're just going to pivot and do a different trick. It's very important that you don't tell them in the beginning that you're going to choose the card that they say stop on. That's not exactly what's going to happen, because there is a possibility that they say stop somewhere where it is completely not where the force card is. So you're just going to tell them to say stop. Don't tell them what's coming next. In that case, if they say stop here, you're going to lower down and say, do you want me to go left or right? Now, if they go left, you just say, okay, great, we'll go left and we'll eliminate these cards. And if they go right, then you say, okay, great, we'll take these cards and use these. And now you can just eliminate these, and you can sort of keep going with this. I've been able to do this multiple times where now they can say stop here. If they want to go left or right, let's say they go right this time and we can eliminate these. It really doesn't matter. You're just sort of controlling the situation in order to get their card in the end. And now you can sort of go into a different trick. I wouldn't keep doing the finger force at this point, because then it starts to get a little bit harder to control the situation. But it's a lot easier when you have a big range of cards. You can very easily pivot and go into different tricks and different techniques. Another way to course correct is if the spectator is being a heckler and they're not saying stop at any particular point. What you can do is very quickly just start moving your finger back and forth like this. And now it truly doesn't matter where they say stop, because if they say stop here, you can pretend like you were too busy moving and you didn't hear them and say, oh, sorry, stop right here. Okay, we'll just stop here. Then you can just sort of drop your finger right on that Queen of Diamonds, and there you go. There's your force right there. You can claim that it truly doesn't matter. We're just gonna stop at a random point in the deck. Stop right here. Okay, great. Let's just stop at the Queen of Diamonds. It truly shouldn't matter in the spectator's eyes. It should just look like a totally random decision. Now, of course, there is the ultimate outcome, and this is something that I've been trying to work on a bit more, but it's definitely something that is not 100% and something that you should not rely on. But if you are feeling confident and you're feeling risky, you can try having the spectator do this themselves. You can have them do the force on themselves. So you can have them take their finger, slowly move it over, and then when they get about here, you ask them whenever they like to stop. Just tell them to go very slowly, and 3 or 4 seconds later they should stop. And it might not be at the Queen of Diamonds, it might be over here at the 10, or it might be here at the ace. But even if you're somewhat close, it's still a good enough basis for you to go off of. And at this point you can sort of get a range of cards. Maybe you could say here and here. Here you can just take these cards, shuffle them up, and now your force card is within this stack over here. So obviously that's not something you should rely on for a force if you need to force a particular card. But if you need to get close to a card, or if you're just feeling risky in general, definitely don't be afraid to try it, because it is something that can work and has worked for me in the past. But yeah, that is essentially my tutorial for this force. This is something that will take a lot of trial and error, a lot of practice. You will need to practice your pattern and figure out your speed and your tempo in order to figure out when the spectator says stop. It's also very spectator dependent. Different people will say stop at different times, but I typically wouldn't do this as a first trick. I would do this after I've gotten to know somebody, or if I'm doing this to somebody that I do know fairly well, someone that I do know will follow instructions and not purposefully try to mess me up, then this trick will have a way higher percentage rate of succeeding. But yeah, that's about all I can say for this trick. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want more videos like this, be sure to comment for more and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.